let's talk about driving growth, which is, we have an intake form for everybody who registers for this event, and they get to list, or actually it's a checkbox. So they get to check what they're most interested in, areas of interest, and growth has been consistently in the top 3. Financial planning, portfolio management, and growth. Top 3 every single event that we've ever done, whether it's a retreat, which will be happening in Colorado in just a little time. So if you haven't registered, go and do that, shameless plug, or a large-scale event. So I'm really happy to be able to have this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us. This is a great topic.
Absolutely. So a little background very quickly before we get into it. Mary Kate, she is a story marketer, has won every industry award that I really think that, I was reading and I was like, why am I interviewing you? I shouldn't even be near you. You're the best. And just a story marketing leader. If you have any questions for us in the group, we do have Slido available in the app, so if you click it, Mary Kate and Michelle will be able to answer it. Michelle Winkles is the CMO of Mission Wealth, which, I feel like your AUM has grown by a few billion just since we walked out onto the stage. It just keeps continuing to grow. So, today we'll be able to talk about how you've been able to use social media and content to be able to grow your firm. Where are you at in AUM at this time?
We're almost at 11 billion.
How many advisors?
I'd say around 50.
50? Great. All right, so that sets the table a little bit. If you need any more information, just look it up because we don't have a lot of time here. So let's start it off with just setting the table and getting clear on definitions. What is content marketing to you? Is it, a lot of advisors think that their, a market update every week and quarter, which is fantastic, is their content marketing strategy. What is content marketing today?
If we go kind of broad, we use content marketing and inbound marketing interchangeably a lot. And the reason that is we think about content marketing as the content you create, however you put it out there, whether that's public relations, via your website, via your YouTube channel, via your podcast, that attracts people in, that brings them into you so you're not going out after them. It's like the direct foil to prospecting where you're going out and pulling them in. So they call it inbound because you're putting content out there so that people come into you. So we keep it broad that way because content comes in, as you know, many, many forms. So content marketing can be an awful lot of things, but at its core, that's what it is.
Love it. Michelle, how do you feel about that? Where do you sit when you think about content marketing? What strikes your mind first?
I completely agree with Mary Kate. Content marketing is so many things. It used to be, a newspaper that people got delivered to their door or just watching TV, but there's so many new ways to think about content marketing, and especially in the digital world. And so there's tons of tactics you can use, and I 100% believe in using a variety of tactics and meeting people where they're at and where they want to absorb that content.
Quick question, what is content? What isn't content marketing? Is a website content marketing? We put a lot of effort into our website. When people come there, we want to make sure that the copy reads right. We want to make sure that the brand feels like what they were expecting. Is that content marketing?
Well, I would say yes and no. The website is definitely the one hub that we direct all of our content to. A lot of people are researching who they want to work with online, so it's super important to think of your website as the go-to source for all of your content. We house our blog on there, video, articles, information about our services, information about our advisors and our people. So yeah, I would say that is a way to distribute information. So yes. Short answer, yes, content.
Mary, what do you think?
I mean, you're going to make me get all nerdy about this, and I will. I mean, it houses content marketing in, the forms of, like Michelle said, your blog, your video, your podcast, whatever it is that you have on your website. Is it content marketing? No, it's a channel. But I don't want to necessarily split hairs about, what it is. But your website is exactly what Michelle said. It's the hub of your brand. It's like the temple of your brand. And no matter where you're distributing your content, it's always pushing back there in one form or another. And beyond the marketing portion of it and the public-facing part of it, it is the doorway to the back end of your marketing system, which is the most important part of it. So it's how you bring people into your CRM, into your world, so that you can work with their data, which is how they become part of your world and how you can continue marketing to them with the most valuable content marketing that you have. And nobody believes me when I say this, which is your email list. So, yeah.
Love it. We'll get to more on that in a second. I just want to ask, Magic Wand, if you could start over today, because there's so many new tools and avenues to be able to do so. Where do you start a content marketing strategy? If you're like, you know what, let's throw everything out and let's start new, how would you do so?
I mean, you start with the word that you just said, which is strategy. The problem with content creation, particularly, I mean, social media is in the title, so particularly with social media, we often treat it like it's just something that we need to do. It's something we need to check off the list. It's an activity.
Checkbox.
Right. It's not an activity. It's a growth strategy. So content marketing, where do we start with that strategy? We start the same place we start in journalism, right? We start with the 5 W's and the H, right? We start with why, who, what, when, where, and how. Why are we doing this? Like, what is the point of your content? What are you trying to accomplish? If you don't answer that question, then you end up with this unforgivably boring situation of like XYZ advisory wishes you a happy Arbor Day. Like, what is that accomplishing for you? It's not bringing you new clients. It's not making your existing clients trust you anymore. And some poor schlep had to spend time making that. And that's not fair to anyone. So ask yourself what you're trying to do with your social media. Is it to build more community around your clients? Is it to bring in more people? Why are you even out there? And then who? Who are you talking to? Who is that that ideal client persona that you are trying to reach? Where are those people? What channels are they spending their time on? You don't need to be everywhere. You need to be where those people are. And then what? What are the things that they care about? I will never forget the time that I started working with a firm that was targeting ultra high net worth clients, and most of their content was about Social Security and 529 plans. And I'm mystified by this, and I'm like, but why? And the answer was because that was what was available to them in canned content. But their people don't care about that. And then, of course, how are we making this available to them? What is the format that we're putting it in? How are they consuming this content? Do they like to listen while they're walking their dog? Do they like to watch YouTube videos? Do they like to read? Some people are deep readers. Then there's this group of people that I call like, aspirational deep readers. They'll download the report. They will never read past the executive summary, but they think they will.
Nobody reads the reports.
I know. I don't read
Compliance reads the reports, and that's about it.
but you still have to write it because they need to know it's there. It makes them feel good about themselves to download it. And then, of course, the most important question, which is, what did it do for me? How do you measure the content once you create it? And you have to answer that question before you create it. You can't try to answer that after you create it. How do we know that we won with this content? So if you're creating content without answering those questions first, you might be wasting an awful lot of time. And I don't enjoy wasting time, and I don't think that any of you do either.
How do you think about it, Michelle?
I agree 100%, starting with your goal, right? With every single piece of content, not just your whole strategy. Yeah, think about your strategy as a whole for your firm or for yourself as an advisor, but definitely start with your goal first. What does this one piece of content want to achieve? And then think about how you're going to use it over and over, like for every piece of content, right? So, and then I just want to add, you're right, Mary Kate, I agree with you about the full circle, all the who, what, where, when, why, how, and then measuring. And I just want to leave with content in general, know that there's probably not going to be one piece that converts. It's going to be many touches of content over time, right? And for me, the way to measure that is having a really sophisticated marketing automation software program that syncs clearly with your CRM, so you can see the journey that that prospect or that web visitor is taking and how they're interacting with that content. I think that's very key. And then you want to measure that way and see what resonated, what's working and what's not.
I love that point, Michelle, especially, I mean, you know it better than anybody else because you are seeing conversions come in, but you're also, it's like, hey, it was this is what made them convert. It's like they've been to our website 12 times and they've come to 3 of our events and they've talked to salespeople 4 times and then they converted on this. So let's just cool our jets for a hot second.
Yeah, some of the biggest leads that we've closed, like we closed a $97 million asset client through our website, through organic SEO, and they had over 100 touches in a period of a year with all of our content and quietly just read our stuff, attended our webinars, subscribed to our newsletter. So it was definitely a combination. You'll have those, and then you could get really lucky and have someone, oh, I love that article this advisor wrote. I want to talk to them, you know? So it can be very different.
So just a quick follow-up to that. Do you feel like customer life cycles or sales cycles are longer or shorter based off of how large or small an account may be? Or is it just kind of random? It depends on the person.
It's different for everyone. No one's the same.
That's a fascinating little data point for us. I want to talk a little bit about strategic differentiation, which is how are you different than everybody else? Social media and content is two-dimensional in a lot of ways. It's coming down a screen, so brand and design is where people think of it the most. But what are other ways that people can think about differentiating themselves if they don't want to completely reskin their brand to look different?
I mean, nobody loves it when I say this, but by and large, financial advisors and wealth managers kind of do the same thing. There's some service offering differentiation when it comes down to specialization, particular areas of expertise, and the types of people that you serve, and that's important. What ends up being more important to people, even than visual differentiation, is a lot of times how you say it. You know, thinking about who that person is that you're talking to. If I'm talking to an 82-year-old widow, I'm going to use a very different tone than I am if I'm talking to a 37-year-old entrepreneur who just had a liquidity event where I exited my business. And I'm offering the same services, but it's going to be about tone. I always think of it as the decoration, the curb appeal on a house, right? Like, what is it that makes me look at you and say, yeah, man, you're the person that I want to work with. You're the guy for me. It really has more to do with how you show up than what it is that you offer, because the offer is not terribly dissimilar to a lot of what else is out there.
Yeah, and I want to add that emotion, being authentic, and it is really important in being different. People will remember how you make them feel, not what you say. Everyone says the same thing. So how can you pull emotion and authenticity into your marketing? And you can do that through a lot of different ways. You can tell stories. You know, people remember stories. You can talk about your specific advisors and who they are as people and what they're passionate about and who they love serving, who they work best with, over just our firm does X, Y, Z. You know, let people get to know your people. People want to work with people.
I'm really glad that you said that. And honestly, since you started with visuals, you know, since you brought that up in the question, I feel like an obligation to the world at large to just, you know, go ahead and point out the use of terrible stock photography in our industry. And I see that head nod out there. I see you, yeah. And just say that we don't have to all use compasses, sailboats, and people in Adirondack chairs. And it's okay to find I understand that we need to use stock photography for affordability. I get it. But you can find a signature style within good stock photography that is yours, and you know, and build a library that looks like that type of, you know, that's your type of photography. It doesn't have to be, you know, a hopeless cliche. So let's all endeavor to do better there.
You know, just when I thought stock photography wasn't going to get worse, AI came along and said,
and
hold
wow.
my beer. Yeah.
And gave it 12 fingers, which was amazing.
Yes,
yeah.
it did. So what is your brand? How do you think about your brand and how it's communicated? Is it the design itself? How do people think about it? Jeff Bezos has the great quote, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, something along those lines. What do you think the brand is? How do you communicate that brand?
Yeah, my design friends always hate when I'm like, the design is not the logo, or the brand is not the logo, but I always say that the brand is that little nugget of information rattling around in somebody's head when they forget everything else about you, and they will forget 98% of everything that you say to them. So how can you be super intentional about that 2% that you leave rattling around in their noggin? So, and the answer is repetition, repetition, repetition. And that comes from being very intentional about your messaging, which is where most companies, not just in financial services, drop the ball on brand. People pay a lot of attention to their visual brand, and they forget about the messaging part, which is what people generally remember.
Yeah, I think it's very important to highlight your values, lead with your values. Who are you as a firm or as an advisor? Your brand is that. It's who you are as a company. It's who your people are. It's what you look like. Yeah, we all have the blue, right? The blue and gold. I'm seeing that more and more. But it's your colors. It's your message. It's your logo. It's social media. It's your content. It's your reputation. Your credibility. It's a combination of so many things. So it's important to be consistent.
You know, jumping into the next phase, I want to think about, you know, attracting instead of chasing clients, which is really what social and content can do for us. But it's beyond clients. It's also the advisors that might want to join your firm. There's a lot of M&A activity that's happening. Why would I want to be associated with this brand? How has content helped you, Michelle, in kind of bringing in new advisors into the fold, thinking about talent, recruiting, things like that?
Content has been really helpful. The most popular content that we have seen have the most engagement is on LinkedIn when we talk about our people or we just share what our people are doing, whether we're getting together as a team at an event or they're volunteering in the community. We see the most engagement with that kind of content. Like
Amazing.
people want to know about people and they can relate. Oh, they're part of that organization. Oh, so am I, you know, and they see you in a more human level, right? I feel like that is what really truly draws people in. And we use a combination of so many different types of content. But yeah, I think obviously thought leadership is important. People want to learn from you, but everyone's doing that too. So how can you be different with your content? I think that's one of the best ways.
Mary Kay, to follow up to that, what do you think about the differences between just purely on social, and let's lean into LinkedIn a little bit, but a corporate handle for LinkedIn versus a personal handle? How do they work together well? What are the differences? What do people want to look at? You know, what do you think about just that big topic of the differences between the two?
I think that's a good question. Let's use LinkedIn as an example because it kind of works that way on all platforms. But the ugly truth about your corporate handle is that the content that you're posting to it rarely shows up in people's feeds. That's just the algorithm favors person-to-person content, and that's okay. That's what social media is. It's social. It's meant to be person-to-person. But when somebody hears about you, they check your social media handles. Like that's one of the ways that they
Personal ones.
Yeah, the prospect does. It's one of the ways they stalk you online. So it's a box that you need to check. You have to have the content there, and it does. You know, having frequently updated content is important. Now, that said, having that content shared by the people on your team is the way to get the distribution that you want and to get the views that you want, because it is the content that's shared by people that's going to get seen. And working with the people in your organization who are considered the thought leaders, who are and the advisors who are actually building the audiences to build their content brand within your brand, is really, they're the ones who are going to be connecting with people. Your corporate brand is not going to necessarily be doing the connecting, but it does provide your people with kind of a base of content that they can then use to push out into the world. So it's very operationally useful in that way. I'm not saying that the corporate handle is useless. I'm saying that it has limits. And it has a purpose. It has a purpose for the people who are using that content to build their own content, their own personal content brand within the company.
How do you use it, Michelle?
LinkedIn?
Just the corporate brand and how that interacts with, let's say, advisors' personal accounts.
At Mission Wealth, we have something called the AMP program, Advisor Marketing Program. So when any new advisor joins our firm, our marketing team helps train them and teach them how to use LinkedIn. We help them optimize their profile, you know, teach them how to promote their thought leadership, you know, share what kind of services they offer, how to share our content, you know. We make sure to have them follow our different social outlets. And then we just encourage them to interact, you know, comment, share, like all of our stuff. And so, and when they are doing things in the community or, you know, maybe they're doing stuff with the team at different gatherings, we always want them to share that with us and we'll share it for them.
You brought up authenticity earlier. Do you think that it would be better if someone only posted when it was something that they actually had an opinion on versus just reposting everything that their corporate handle posts with no commentary?
I think it's really important to add your thoughts. Add your thoughts. Why is this important to you? Why am I sharing this? Don't just repost. Definitely add your thoughts. Tag other people to join the conversation. Add hashtags that are relevant, not just hashtag wealth, hashtag finance. Like, no one's looking at those things. But make sure just to have the conversation, engage in different conversations, Go through your feed. I personally posted, and maybe a lot of you in the audience saw this, just a funny example. I was on the plane preparing for this panel, and Niall sent us the questions ahead of time, and I had a 27-page document with all of my thoughts. I'm like, I just want to be very valuable to everyone. I don't want to just think of something and forget about it later. I'm like, oh, I should have said that. And I posted that on LinkedIn, and I said, only I would print out a 27-page paper. How do you all prepare? And I had hundreds of people like it. It was funny. I used a little bit of humor. I laughed at myself, and then I had a call to action. I think every piece of content should have some kind of call to action, a question, an engagement. What do you guys think? It's an actual conversation. One of the biggest mistakes I see people posting is these long text posts on LinkedIn with a picture. No call to action. I don't have time for that. I don't have the attention span for that, and I don't think most other people do. So I think that's super important, is use humor, be authentic, be yourself, people like that.
Well, we appreciate you being prepared. I think preparation is very important. And also, we'll be rewarding you with a future-proof PhD after this.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Let's talk about the different social platforms and how they've changed. Something that I see all the time is, they'll just copy any strategy, just copy and paste for different platforms. It's the exact same thing, just distributed to a different, Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter or, I guess TikTok is becoming a thing, Facebook. What do you think about the different platforms and how they've shifted?
I mean, I think operationally there are people who really miss those days because it was.
Yeah, it was nice.
It was nice, but I think that they're, along with the fact that every platform is different, you have to optimize for every platform. There comes this idea of overwhelm, that means I have to be very original for every platform. It actually doesn't, because you don't actually need to be on every platform. If we go back to the where.
Facts.
Yeah, exactly. In that whole idea of the 5 W's, where are your people? Is your ideal client persona, are your clients and your prospects on every platform? Are they on TikTok? Are they on Facebook? Your 37-year-old entrepreneur is not on Facebook, and your 85-year-old widow is not on TikTok. So you don't need to be everywhere. You need to be where they are. And I would always rather have you be excellent on one platform than have you be kind of garbage on all of them. So if you can do anything, be excellent on one and then when you're ready to expand and go to that second platform that your people are on, then go be excellent on that one when you're ready to expand, and don't just, kind of try to copy, paste, and optimize for all of the platforms. That used to be the social media playbook, was to, this is the core message, let's translate it for each platform. And it's really not necessary, and in fact, it's kind of folly to think about it that way. If that would be the equivalent in any other marketing, ecosystem of that we're putting it on every media, that we're putting it on every television channel, or we're putting it on every possible news website, and that doesn't make sense. So it certainly doesn't make sense for social media.
Yeah, think about where your ideal client is. What are they doing throughout the day, right? Think about that. What are they looking at? What are they reading? How are they absorbing information? And then hone in on that.
Yeah, what's fascinating to me too is that, these different platforms have different lengths of life that it takes to get their full engagement. And so you can think about, all right, this is going to be my very quick thoughts that are going to go out on Twitter. Something will last longer on LinkedIn. I need to do it in video for Instagram. And ultimately with social media, it's social. So if you're just posting and then disappear and people comment and then you don't comment back, kind of hurts my feelings.
Yeah.
You know, so you need to be able to follow up and make sure that you're getting the most out of the platform. So there's no wrong answer here, and I would say there's no right answer because it's different for everybody. But what do you think is the best social media platform? If you had to pick one for a financial advisor, which one would you pick, and why?
I bet we would both say the same thing. Should we say it at the same time?
One, two, three.
three. LinkedIn.
All right, now,
Yeah.
now do the why at the same time, too.
No, you go first on why.
Okay, so I'll say LinkedIn because, so our marketing team, we market to all different segments. We do M&A, B2B, B2C, recruitment, and lead gen. And you can do all of that on LinkedIn, right? And it's easier to track with compliance. You get the most engagement. You even network. All your colleagues, people like you are there. So I feel like you can really do a lot to all those different segments in one place. I don't use X. I feel like you need to really be in that all day and talking back and forth. And I don't see a lot of people on that. I mean, that's a very broad audience. It's not as narrow. So I wouldn't use that. I don't use Facebook as much, but there are probably a ton of clients on there or prospects. And Instagram we use, but can't really measure its effectiveness as well as LinkedIn.
I feel like the only thing I'll add about LinkedIn is I think one of the reasons that it's most beneficial to advisors is because when you're looking at your ideal client persona, a lot of organizations have specific, companies or types of job titles that they're targeting, and LinkedIn is great at that kind of targeting. I do find a lot of value in the Meta platforms for retargeting, but I don't necessarily want to get into the, uber nerdery of that. So, but yeah, LinkedIn is also where people tend to be thinking more about serious topics. You don't go there to consume your dog content and, buy new swimsuits.
You know what's funny with me? I'll go on LinkedIn to see somebody's professional career, and then I'll go search on like X or Instagram to see who they are as a person. There's just a funny data point there. But something that I also think is unique that not a lot of people are talking about, even advisors, is that the number 2 largest search engine, and we'll see what happens to search over the next 5 years, is YouTube. And YouTube has Shorts now, which is a really great way to answer one direct question that someone's looking for. I see you, I hear you, I feel you in a certain way. If it's great, then I'll click on it, and now they can, you can click on that YouTube short that take you to the long form. And people say, oh, my clients are on YouTube Shorts, and I totally disagree. It's something like, I'll go into our next question of user-generated content, but about 70% of millennials make buying decisions based off of, testimonials that they see online. It's 78% for Gen Z. We talk about the great wealth transfer happening all the time. How people make buying decisions is changing. How should wealth managers think about reviews, testimonials, anything user-generated content? I don't know if that's the right nomenclature for the service industry, but your clients making content about you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would say that reviews and testimonials are the core user-generated content for the industry, and how we need to start thinking about it is we need to be a lot less afraid of it than we have been, because right now only between 7 and 9% of financial advisors are using online testimonials, and that's up a little bit from last year. It's been more than 2 years since the new SEC advertising rule has been in effect. And I get that everybody was waiting for the first movers to get out there and get their hands slapped. And first movers are out, second movers are out, and it's all going well, everybody. It's working out. The only people who are getting their hands slapped are the ones who are out there talking about investment performance. And I gotta tell you, as a marketing professional, if you're out there touting your investment performance, then you're doing it wrong. But when it comes to testimonials, nobody's getting their hands slapped, and it's a beautiful thing that helps with conversions. And there are so many ways that you can do it simply now that are really compliant. And what is it now? It's 89% of people say that they trust an online review as much as they trust a personal referral. And this is the one point that I like to really drive home. I did a piece of research last spring, and what really surprised me, and when I say this, I'm not saying that referrals are going away, because they're not. They'll never go away. Referrals will always be important. However, for those who have built their practice on referrals, and referrals are the only source of leads, this is just a little warning bell that there was a very clear age line of people who needed a referral in order to choose a financial advisor when we surveyed people who had chosen an advisor in the last 18 months. If I'm over the age of 60, I needed a referral. 49% of them said it was a requirement in order for me to select an advisor. If I am under the age of 60, it was 29% who required a referral. If I turn 60, it doesn't mean suddenly I'm going to be like, oh, I need a referral now. Like, that buying behavior is not going to change. A personal referral is just not important to me because I have other ways of finding, of verifying and of developing trust. And one of those ways is online reviews. So if this is not something you're doing right now, the first movers and second movers are out. It's time to start building that. And do not wait, because when third and fourth movers are out, there's going to be a distinct disadvantage for the ones who are not showing up in search results, because they'll be the ones who have reviews and the ones who don't. So they'll be the ones who are verified that they provide a good experience and the ones who are untested and unknown quantities. So get it done. There are a lot of good platforms. My personal favorite is IndieFin.
How are you using them?
Well, testimonials, I think people are afraid to ask for, so it's important to just educate yourself on how to ask for them. And if you can't ask for them or you don't have testimonials, there's other tactics you can use to share user-generated content. You can ask your advisors to share stories about how they've helped clients. Don't say performance, but just theoretical scenarios. I wish more advisors or more women knew this about finance or saving or budgeting or investing. Just kind of thought leadership advisor testimonials. You could do that. There's so many awards out there too. Barron's, FA, Wealth Management, Investment News. There's so many different awards you can get credibility. Credibility is so important if you're trying to generate new business online. Digital, I think, has been one of my areas I've focused on so much in the last few years. And I see through all the growth channels, it's the hardest one to convert because you're not getting referred by anyone specifically. You have to prove your credibility online. So you want to use various tactics, and testimonials are probably the best way. So we try to weave in those testimonials in our emails and on our website and in social media just to reinforce, what people think about us in a positive way.
I think there's a little bit of a double-edged sword to them as well. So when I go to a website, whether it's any product, not necessarily just to advisors, and it's nothing but 5 stars, the first thing that comes to my head is like, I don't know if I buy it. There's something smells off here. Right. And so I don't think that you just want to have all perfect reviews for what it's worth, which is a dangerous territory for a business to kind of go into as well. And I think a good hedge on that is to tell those stories. And I find that clients, when they have this transformational experience with their advisor, are anxious to get the word out there because it made such a big impact on their life. Mm-hmm. I went through this big life event, and I came out the other side, and this happened. How can we tell that story to help other people, who are going through a similar thing? And so there's like these bite-sized versions of testimonials that can happen. And then there's a little bit of longer form where, this person at this age had this life event, this is how we handled it, and this was the outcome, and then go shout that from the rooftops of social media and the rest of the distribution hubs.
I think you're exactly right. And there's this idea, I think, that by asking our clients for their stories that we're imposing on them in some way.
They're excited.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, who doesn't like to talk about themselves, first of all? And, I'm sure there's somebody out there, but it certainly isn't me. But when you ask your client, if you sit down with your client and say, let's talk about this. How is this working for you? When you walk out of this office, how do you feel? When you sit down and, when you get in your car, like, what's the overriding feeling? Is there something that I could be doing better for you? Like, what's the primary impact that this relationship has had on your life? How are they going to feel just by having you ask those questions? Just having you ask those questions improves their experience with you. It's not even about the testimonial at that point. You're showing them that you legitimately care about what the outcomes are for them. So using that as a way to improve their client experience and enhance that relationship is it's a great way to get stories, but it's also just a hell of a way to connect. And why not take every opportunity to connect that you can?
A lot of marketers and the executive team in general have a tough time measuring success from social media and how it's impacting revenue. I think it's something like 80% across all industries or more of marketers say it's difficult to measure success from social media. How do you think about measuring success so that you can go to an executive team or a board, or even if you're just a solo practitioner? How do you think about measuring this in a way that's meaningful?
You just have to track like 100 different points, right? No, I'm just
No
kidding.
big deal.
That's all.
There's so many
Just need a
things you can
spreadsheet.
track. Yeah, and I have those. I'm sure you can imagine. I think tracking success just involves patience. Know that there's not one thing that's going to be promising, right? It's going to be a combination of content and what converts. I don't know. How would you, Mary Kate? What would you say? It's hard for me to say there's like one way to do it because there's lots of different.
Well, is it last touch attribution? Let's get into buzzwords here. Is it the final thing that they do? Is it the first thing? Is it activity? Is it engagement? What are you looking for?
So it's not last touch attribution, but that's where you end up starting. And for just to keep us from being super annoying, last touch attribution meaning I saw this thing, I clicked on it, that's the thing that made me convert. Henceforth, that's the thing that gets credit for bringing me in, even though I listened to 12 of your podcasts before.
Yes.
Those don't get any credit. That's where we start because that's the least sophisticated, it's the easiest way to track. What we wish we could do, and some organizations can do, the first thing that you do when it comes to like a board, the executive team, is the setting of expectations. Everybody wants to see the ROI on marketing. Completely makes sense. I do too. We all do. You can see it at the campaign level when we think about something like last touch attribution. Then, this campaign clearly generated this number of leads, or it clearly generated this number of phone calls. We can't necessarily measure what it did for the overall brand impact. We can't, talk about halo effect or anything like that is indirect, right? Fine. So did it do a great job of measuring everything? No. Did it measure the direct impact? Yes. What we would really love to be able to do, and what you can do as you get into a larger organization where you can spend the money to have a good data scientist to not only pull together all of your marketing data from your CRM, but also the financial data attached to your accounts, which is also what needs to be pulled in there. Then you can start looking at things like, okay, what we want to do is tie this all to lifetime client value. How much money actually comes in, how much money continues coming in, and then all the way at the top, I want to tie that to brand awareness. Now, how I get from here to here is a long series of daisy chaining and layering of different data points, and you have to layer them one by one, and that takes time. So when an executive or a board member says, I want to know the ROI on marketing. All right, man. ROI on marketing is a complex question. Can I tell you how many leads a campaign generated? Yes, I can. Can I tell you the ROI on marketing? No. Unless we have invested enough to make that daisy chain happen. So I can tell you if I put $1 in at the top, I get $3 at the bottom. And if you're not willing or in a position to make that investment, then you can't answer that question. And that's as simple as that.
It's hard to define or just ask what's the ROI of marketing, because marketing is so many things now, and marketers are in a role today that was not there 5 years ago. It was very different 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Marketing is collateral, it's social media, it's business development, it's growth, it's M&A now, right? It's
Experience.
everything. So you can't just say, it's so general to say that, right? Just wanted
100%.
What do you think about how AI has impacted marketing? Where are we going from here?
I mean, there's a couple different directions we can take that question, and I'll start with the most obvious.
We got 24 seconds.
24 seconds. Generative AI is the jam. Go.
I love AI. I just say embrace it, learn it. Don't be scared of it. Don't trust it 100%. But definitely use it. There's so many great AI tools out there today and great marketing AI tools out there. Just definitely don't be afraid to use it and have it help you. It's definitely changed the way we do things dramatically.
Especially for content repurposing. It is a lifesaver. So if you have if you start with video and you have one of your thought leaders make a video, suddenly you have a transcript, then you can turn that video into 1,000,000 shorts and a blog post and a good piece of audio and a couple of different, webinar snippets. It's so handy, and we used to have to do all of that manually, and now we don't. And it's all coming from source material that is human created, so it has a much more human feel than just generating it. So that is, start with video, and generative AI will be your bestest friend when it comes to repurposing.
I just want to add too, we've gotten a few leads from ChatGPT, so we were very excited about that. So if you can learn about how to optimize, your business for ChatGPT, and that's a whole other conversation. That's a new source, and people are starting to use that to search.
Yeah, my 2 cents on it is it's not a substitute for your own thoughts. It's like a research helper, a supplementer. But don't nuke your own brand by using ChatGPT to write for you and think for you. It just eliminates
Have
your
a voice.
authenticity.
Have your voice.
Well, that's it for us. If you had any questions, these two were gracious enough to offer some time. Come over and see us on the side tent. But thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. We'll see you at the next sessions.